Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. You are welcome to the Education USA Facebook Live program. Today is a very special day. We're having a virtual pre-departure orientation for undergraduates. So this is not to sideline graduates. We discuss different issues all the time. So we're focusing our attention on those going for undergraduate today. We have a lot for you this afternoon. We will have a presentation on how to prepare to go, and then we'll talk about cross-cultural, academic, all the issues, all the different set of things that will come into play as you prepare to go to the US to study as an international student. We will also give you an opportunity to hear from students who were once like you, all anxious, not sure what to expect, where they are going and all of that. They've gone through, and so they're here to share their experiences with you. So we have three different sections. I will, at this time, like to say my own congratulations. It's been a long way, but you made it, so we are happy for you. Pre-departure will help you to prepare yourself very well as you embark on this academic journey to the US. This is the Education USA Facebook Live. My name is Bernice Afute. I'm one of 4 Education USA advisors in Ghana in 2 centers, Accra and Kumasi. I'm here with all my colleagues. We're all represented. We have our students. We have our supervisor, Ms. Lannis Brooker, who is the cultural attaché at the US Embassy. She will begin the event with an opening remark. So I will turn over at this time to my supervisor to welcome you. Thank you.
Thank you, Bernice. I want to also offer my congratulations and share in the excitement of this event. As any college freshman or college student who is about to embark on a new degree knows, there's a lot of excitement, anticipation, and maybe a little bit of concern and trepidation. But we're really excited to welcome you today. We appreciate the fact that you have taken those extra steps to work with Education USA. You are going to have an even better experience as a result. And I want to offer thanks to my colleagues, Bernice and Rafiatu, to Marilyn and Margaret, to our entire team here in Accra, as well as in Kumasi. And know that you are in excellent hands as you go through the process with them. I also want to just tell you, remind you that you are part of a very special cohort of students that are coming back after a long hiatus for many. Although, as you will hear from some of your my colleagues in Education USA, we're very proud of the fact that even in the midst of COVID, when many schools were shut down and a lot of different countries had a drop in their numbers, Ghana actually increased the numbers of students studying in the United States. And we are now the 2nd sending country in sub-Saharan Africa behind Nigeria, which we'll try to catch up to them, of course. But we are really pleased with that. It speaks to the relationship, the very special relationship between the United States and Ghana, and speaks to the hard work of my colleagues at Education USA to ensure that those collaborations, those relationships continue to grow. So as you start this process, I want to commend you for going through it and also congratulate you, and also offer up our support. Once you are in the United States, we hope that you will stay in communication with us. Tell us about your experiences, and hopefully one day you'll be like some of the other students that you'll hear from today. You'll be coming back here telling about your experience to the next generation of students. The embassy here in Accra serves a large population of Americans here in Ghana, but we also work to get Ghanaians to study in the US. And we hope that you will remember that you are ambassadors in your own right to the different universities and schools that you'll be going to. You'll be sharing about your culture, and you'll be learning about it. And for us, our official exchanges, we always talk about how it's a two-way exchange. It's as much for Americans to learn about Ghana as it is for you to learn about America and Americans. And we hope that you will continue that relationship long after you return and keep those relationships going. So with that, I'm going to pass it back to my wonderful colleagues who have all the information and tips and insight into making sure that you have a wonderful and smooth transition to the start of your studies. We're very excited for you and stand by to offer any support that we can.
Thank you very much, Lanice. As she said, we are number 2, and we want to keep it like that. We don't want to rub shoulders with Nigeria. So this pre-departure is also a good way to prepare us so that we'll be in a comfortable lead. As we start the presentations, I would encourage you to type your comments and your questions in the chat box. During the student panel and the Q&A time, we're going to go through all these and make sure we're giving you the answers you need. At this time, I'll turn over to my colleague, Ms. Marilyn Owusu, to take us through the initial procedures, how to plan to travel. Over to you, Mrs. Owusu.
Thank you so much, Bernice, and thank you so much, Lanice. And congratulations once again to all our students who are getting ready to go to the US. As Bernice said, I'm going to share a few tips on how we should prepare after we've gotten our visa to be able to go to the US. There are a few, okay, good. For those of you who are waiting to get your visas, this is also key importance to you because eventually you will go. But those who've gotten their visas and are ready to go, once you get ready, these are the things you should look out for. The first thing is that please make sure, go back and look at your passport and make sure that your passport is valid for more than 6 months before you enter the US, because it is a requirement. So that if you are entering in July, make sure that it's valid for more than 6 months before you go to the US. And then make sure that you have your visa. As I said earlier, the assumption is that you have your visa already, but if you don't, as a student, you are required to have either your F1 or J1 visa to be able to go. Then every student is required to have an I-20. I-20 issued by the school you are going to. Make sure that the school has signed the I-20. You have also signed the I-20. And for the I-20, please check where you sign. Sometimes students make the mistake of signing a wrong portion. There's a portion that asks if you are above 18 or less than 18. Please make sure you've signed that and you have that document with you. And then you have your air ticket too, to be sure that you are set, you are ready to get to the US. There are a few things you need to look for, and especially now that we've gone through a pandemic. As you plan to go, your medical documents would have to be set. And by medical documents, the first thing is schools require that you have your certificates for immunization. And it's something that's almost, in fact, every school requires that you have it. So if you've not had any immunizations, please make sure you do. And then please make sure that you have the records with you. And then per requirements now, you'd have to be fully vaccinated before you get to the US. So if you are not vaccinated, please make sure that you are fully vaccinated. You have your documents that shows that you are vaccinated, because at the airport, the airlines will look for it. And when you get to the US, it will also be checked. So please make sure that you have all your certificates for your immunization and then vaccination. And then one thing, the difference between Ghana and the US. Here in Ghana, we can walk to a pharmacy shop and then sometimes without prescriptions, get some medications we want. But in the US, it's not the same. You can't go over to a pharmacy and ask for antibiotics. Most pharmacies will not give it to you unless a doctor has prescribed it. So please, if you have any prescriptions that you need, please make sure that you hold on to the prescriptions before you pack the prescriptions, actually, before you go. And then if you have any medical and dental records that are of importance as you travel to the US, please make sure that you have them. So these are for the medical documents. Then for academic records, because you are going to school, and that's the reason why you are going, please make sure that you have your official transcripts with you. You have original certificates of everything you've done, so that if it's a BSc degree and you have your certificate, please hold the original one. If it's WASI that you just finished writing, please have it. If you did a master's and you are going to do a PhD, please make sure that you have original certificates. You have all your transcripts. And then if you wrote any of the standardized tests, SAT, TOEFL, ACT, GRE, IELTS, any of the standardized tests, make sure you have your academic documents with you. And then for your own good, it's good for you to have outlines of all courses you've taken, and then even descriptions of these courses, if you have them, so that you can easily use them when you are asked. If you need to give any references, you easily have it, and it is something you have in your possession that you can use. And then one other important thing, and you need to hold it before you leave Ghana, is your US campus contact information. When you are filling your visa form, you actually stated your contact person in the US. But as you are going, you need it, especially if you've never traveled. Because if you get to the airport, for instance, in the US, and you are stranded, anyone can help you by getting you to contact the person in the US that they are supposed to go to. So please make sure that information is handy. It's actually in your handbag or in your laptop bag or any place where you can easily reach to be able to make sure that you will not get stranded when you get to the US. Then, as part of your arrangements to be able to go, the first thing is make sure that all your travel arrangements are set. And when I say are set, from if you are in Accra, you know you are leaving from Accra to the airport to go. If you're in Kumasi, you're in Bolga, you're at different places, make sure that everything you are doing towards your travel arrangements is set. If you get to the US, how will you get to campus? Are you making arrangements with international students to pick you up from the airport to send you to school? Are you making arrangements with the international students office at your university to help you get there? Are you supposed to make private arrangements by getting a taxi from the airport to school? All these arrangements should be done even before you leave Ghana, so that you don't get stranded when you get to the US. And then for housing arrangements, please make sure that your housing arrangements is also very set. This is because for undergrads, for instance, you might be required to live on campus. Most schools would ask that your first year you live on campus before you move out. Please make sure you know exactly where you are going to. You've made payments for undergraduate housing, and you won't get stranded. Graduate students, schools will normally ask you to get accommodation yourself. So if you've made those arrangements, make sure you have the address you are going to, you've made a down payment, or if you get there, you know that this is where I'm going to and I'm going to make payment. Everything should be set before you even leave Ghana. And then for finances, All your banking information and documents should be set. If you've already made payments for part of your fees, that's fine. Have your receipts ready to be able to show. If you are going to make your payments and you are holding your money to make payments at the school, make sure you have it handy. If it's a money transfer that has been done or will be done, please make sure that all the information you need to be able to get your finances sorted out is very handy, and you can use that. And then I've already stated emergency contact. I'm emphasizing it here because you can't do without it. If there's anybody who would be your contact when you get to the US, sometimes even apart from the contact in the school, you might have relatives or you might have friends who you can easily reach out to as emergency contact. Please make sure you get in touch with them before you leave Ghana. Then there are airlines restrictions that sometimes we may not know. So these are a few tips to help you. Most airlines will give you up to 23 kilos worth of luggage you can have per suitcase. And for each suitcase would be 23 kilos. Most airlines will give you 2 bags that you can carry. And then you're entitled to a carry-on that you can use to go. These carry-ons also have restrictions on the maximum capacity or kilos you can take. And please make sure you take note of that, because you may leave some of the things, especially if you've packed your gari and your shito and you are just waiting to go. When you get to the airport and these things are in excess, you can't travel with the items you've packed. So please make sure you know the rules and regulations for all the pieces of luggage you can carry. And then you should also know that you are not allowed to carry big bottles of liquids. If you have any kind of liquid, it should go with your main suitcase, not with your carry-on. So if you are going to take any liquid on your carry-on, it shouldn't go, most of the time, airlines will not allow you to take anything more than 100 ml. That's the recent one. Even though I have here 300, most airlines will not allow you to take anything more than 100 ml. So please take note of that. If you need more information on the pieces of luggage you can take and the things you can carry, the website's address is provided here that you can easily use. And then you can also check the things that are prohibited that you can take to the US. As you pack, these are a few critical things you should consider. Depending on if you are going in August, most of the time it's warm, July is warm. But even with that, the airplane can be very cold. So please make sure that you have a jacket that you can wear when you get on the plane so that you don't feel cold on the plane. And then check the weather of the place, the particular destination you are going to. If you are going to New York, just go online, Google for the current weather there so that you can know how to dress properly to be able to go. And then when you get to fall, it will start getting cold. Sometimes it's cheaper to buy your jackets from Ghana before you get to the US. Or you can get a relative jacket to be able to carry you through till you get settled in the US. So please make sure that you have enough warm clothing to be able to hold you till you get settled in the US. And then, aside the warm clothing, you need to represent Ghana. You will have International Students Day, you will have a cultural day. Please make sure you've packed well for it so that once you get there, that's not when you're going to search for things on Amazon to buy, but you can get them before you go. And then the things you can pack in your carry-on versus your main luggage I've already stressed on it. You can't take liquids over 100 ml in your carry-on. And you should make sure that anything that is bulky, it's better it goes into your main luggage. But all your academic documents, all your I-20, your visa requirements, anything you used to apply for the visa that is relevant, you would need that at immigration. So please make sure you are holding it. It doesn't go into your main luggage so that you can easily have access to them. Then clothing, personal items, grooming items. For your carry-on, sometimes, unfortunately, the airlines might take a while for all your luggage to arrive with you, and you don't want to be stranded or spend your few dollars that you have buying clothing or buying personal things the moment you get to the US. So it's always advisable that you pack some personal items, grooming items, and then some clothing in your carry-on so that you don't get stranded. Then all the other things can go into your actual suitcase. Then electronics, books, stationery is always good to have them in your carry-on so that you are safe. You can easily get access to them the moment you get to school. And then even aside that, for the electronics, if it goes into your main luggage, it can get damaged. So it's better to keep them in your carry-on. For food, let me tell you this, it depends on which area you are going to. There are some states where you can have access to Ghanaian meals, but even that, they will be so costly. So if you know that you love your Milo, you love your Cerelac, you love your Gary, you love your Shito, your Nido, something, things that if you miss home, at least you can fall on immediately to let you feel good a bit. Please make sure that you pack these things and in your main luggage and then go with them. Then departure schedule is very important, and especially if you be transiting from one airport to another airport. Please make sure that you know what time your flight is leaving. Most airlines will tell you that arrive at the airport no later than 2 hours before your departure time. But to be on the safe side, you can decide to go 3 hours before so that you don't miss your flight. It's very expensive to buy tickets. So make sure you know your departure schedule. And then if you are transiting in the US, let's say you get to the main port of entry and you're going to your state, make sure you know exactly where you are going, follow instructions, and have everything in handy. For the US, you can easily ask questions. People are happy to help you. But you need all these documents with you, and it should be handy so that you can fall on. All right. Now, I've said almost everything here, but just for emphasis, at Kotoka International Airport, they will check your passport and make sure it's valid, and that the duration till expiry is more than 6 months. At the airport, they also check your COVID vaccinations to make sure you have them. Also at the airport, they will look at your destination, the address you'll be going to when you get to the US. The airlines will check them before you go. So please make sure you have everything with you. On board the plane, if you are traveling for the first time and you know you might not like the food on the airline, just make sure that you pack everything that you know you can eat when you get there to be able to, when you get on the plane, so that if you're hungry, at least you can have something that you know you're comfortable with. I've talked about transits already. At your destination, I've talked about making prior arrangements to be able to get to school all right. But one thing you need to know, you will go through immigration in the US before you actually get outside the airport to go to school. So all the things I mentioned earlier, as in getting your I-20, things you use for the visa, your finances, all the documents should be with you. because at immigration, you'd be asked questions and you'd have to show documentation before you're allowed to actually enter the US. So keep all these things in mind before you proceed to campus. And we will have other presentations. So let me quickly tell you this, and then I'll pause here. The moment you get to school, it's always advisable to go straight to the International Students Office if it's open, so that you can know exactly what you are doing before you are told where to go to. If the international office will be closed at that time, just for emphasis, you've made arrangements for housing, you know exactly where you are going to. It's very, very important. Don't miss student orientations, it's important. Make sure that if you are meeting other students and there are other Ghanaian students that you can get in touch with, make sure you make prior arrangements to be able to meet these students and be able to go. It's a priority for you to be able to know your school and to be able to know your community, so that anything you can do to help you get settled as soon as possible, please make sure you're able to do that the moment you get to school, and then move into your residence when you get there. Every other thing, I want to pause here because I know Dr. Jogoto has so much information to share with us. But I'm hoping you can always come back to the video to watch these things and write everything down if you have to, so that once you get to the US, you know you will be, you will settle in very fast. So I wish you all the best as you prepare to go. At this point, I'll hand over to Bernice or Dr. Jogoto to continue with the session.
Mrs. Owusu, thank you so much. You've given us a lot of awesome information. At this time, we've learned about what to do and how to prepare and get ourselves to the airport. I have to apologize. For some reason, my camera is not working. So forgive me. But at this time, we'll turn over to Dr. Jogoto to take us through the next section. Dr. Jogoto, you're very welcome. It's good to see you in person.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here. Okay. So by this point, I'm guessing that people are beginning to feel a little bit intimidated because there's a lot of things to keep track of, but we have confidence in you that you will be fine. You will get through the airport, you will get to your schools, you will navigate all these things. It is just something that there's a lot of steps, and so it's very important that you are well informed. And once you start going through the, just try to keep track of all the details, the most important thing to remember is keep your documentation with you, put other things in a suitcase, keep a change of clothes with you just in case something happens. You will be fine. So my presentation is based on the assumption that you will get through all of the logistics, all the actual departure process, that you will get to the airport, get to your school, register, all of that. And my presentation kind of picks up from, okay, now you're in America, what is it like? And this presentation is based on personal observations, academic information, and other people's observations. Last month, there was something going on Twitter called Swedengate. And Swedengate happened because, I don't know whether any of you heard of this at all, given all the other things happening in the world. But Swedengate was interesting to me because people started basically hating on Sweden, because apparently in Sweden, if you're a child, like in the 70s and the 80s at least, if you were a child, you went to visit a friend of yours, and it was dinner time, your friend would go and eat, you wouldn't be invited, and then your friend would come back after eating and then come and continue to play with you. And so it started this discussion on Twitter about what is wrong with Swedish people? Like, you're supposed to feed everybody. And so Jamaicans started saying, that's not how it's done in Jamaica. Ghanaians were saying that's not how it's done in Ghana, and so on. But there was somebody who wrote about Swedish culture called Michael Booth, and he made this interesting observation. He said, in Sweden, one must be able to solve one's own problems. Swedes don't like to ask favors of each other. They keep their problems to themselves and suffer in silence. To ask for help, or even to give it, is a low-level social taboo. Debt of any kind, be it emotional, a favor, or cash, is to be avoided at all costs. Think about that for a minute. That does not sound like Ghana at all, right? Not liking to ask favors of each other, keeping problems to ourselves, suffering in silence, asking for help, not giving help. The Swedish way is so un-Ghanaian. Now, you might ask yourself, you're going to America, why on earth is she starting this presentation by talking about Sweden? I'm talking about Sweden because this example, this Sweden Gate example, highlights the importance of understanding cultural differences. And that is what we're going to do in this presentation in the next half hour or so. What I want to do is to begin to sensitize you to the fact that you are a Ghanaian going to the United States and what that actually means. So we're talking about Ghanaian culture, US culture, how they're similar and different. I will not, of course, be able to capture every single thing in my presentation. I'll talk a little bit about the cross-cultural adjustment process, and then I'll talk a little bit about academic expectations in an American environment. And I have to start with a caveat saying that even though I'm going to be talking about general things which you will probably experience, there is, of course, individual differences. So some people's experiences will vary depending on whether they've been out of Ghana before, not what country they were in, how many times they've been out of Ghana. Some of it will be specific to your university. Some of it will be specific to your personality. Some of it will be specific to what major you study, right? So even though I'm going to be talking in general terms, it is important to realize that there will be nuances that will be specific to your experience. Even your gender, male or female, might shape some of these differences. One of the things that people notice once they get to America is visible cultural differences. Like, you see the place and you're like, oh, I'm not in Ghana anymore. Or you leave America and come to Ghana, you're like, oh yeah, I'm totally in Ghana right now, right? So the most obvious thing is the visible cultural differences. So here's one. This is, in a typical grocery store, how you buy milk. This is the milk aisle. So talking about Nido and the fact that if you really like Nido, you should take some with you. As you can see, there's no Nido here. This is the fresh milk aisle. And everything that you see on this aisle is milk. So if you wanted to buy milk, you would not only have to make decisions about what brand of milk to get, but then within the brand, you'll have to make decisions about whether you want chocolate milk, strawberry milk, regular milk. And if it's regular milk, you have to decide whether it's 1%, 2%, or whole milk or something else. And then if you are not into cow milk, there'll probably be soy milk, coconut milk, all sorts of different kinds of milk, right? Welcome to America, the land of options. Problem is, if it takes you so long to decide on what kind of milk to buy, it can result in decision fatigue sometimes. And I'll come back to that in a second. But one of the visible cultural differences that you're going to see is that there are so many more choices in the United States than in here. Ghana has actually become very different from what it used to be. So now you can go to places and get options, but you are going to have way more options when you get to the United States. And this impacts how you order food. So here you can go to, I don't know, Vida Cafe or something now, and you order Milo and they'll say it's 18 cedis. So you just, what do you want, Milo, you buy it. Here's how to order a cup of coffee in any coffee shop in the United States. first you have to do the size. Now in Ghana also, sometimes you get different sizes, right? So you have to decide whether you want a small, medium, or large coffee. But then you have to decide what kind of coffee you want, because there are different kinds of coffee. You generally have a minimum of 6 choices. Then you have to decide whether the coffee that you picked is caffeinated or decaf. And then you have to decide what kind of milk you want. Fortunately, they don't in coffee shops have as many kinds of milk as you saw in the milk aisle. So you don't have to make that many decisions, but you still need to decide whether you want, whole milk or skim milk. And then sometimes they'll ask you if you want extra shots of something, maybe extra shots of vanilla or something else, how many extra shots you want, and then whether you want it for here or to go, which is, take away or eat in. And then do you want something else with that, right? And here you thought you were just ordering a cup of coffee, but you're making 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 separate decisions to buy one thing, right? Again, America, a lot of choices. Here's another example, which I will skim over a little bit. But this one I got from a salad bar, where if you're ordering a salad, the number of decisions that you have to go through. So this is sweet greens. You choose up to 2 bases from a selection of about 8. Then ingredients you choose from the ones over here, right? You choose up to 4 from cilantro, raisins, basils, raw beets, blah, 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 to toasted almonds. And then you can choose 1 premium addition from this list over here, which ranges from roasted zucchini to Parmesan crisps. And then you choose 1 dressing, but your dressings are charred tomato vinaigrette, curry yogurt dressing, lime cilantro, jalapeno vinaigrette, all the way down to red chili, right? And all you wanted was a salad, and you're probably thinking, oh, Ghana kind of salad, which has your baked beans and stuff like that. But this is where you have to build your own salad, and you have to make decisions about all the options. So in terms of bases, you probably didn't know that there were this many different kinds of salad leaves that you could put in a salad, right? And then all the different kinds of additives. Again, land of choice. These are immediate things that will hit you most of the time, right? The food is different. They eat more vegetables. The portions are larger. The roads mostly are tarred, have fewer potholes. They have more resources. There rarely ever is light off or not running water, even though those actually can happen depending on where you are. People speak differently. So there's the whole thing of an American accent, but ironically, they'll hear you as having an African accent and not them as having an American accent. So be prepared for that. Shopping sizes are different. So that's one thing to remember, that American clothes sizes are different from European clothes sizes. Shoe size is the same thing. Weather is different depending on where you're going. So if you are going to the Northeast, for example, or the Midwest, you'll be dealing with winter. If you go to Florida, not so much, but then there are hurricanes. Depending on whether you are in an urban place or more of a suburban place, you may see different relationships with transportation. There are a lot of places where cars rather than public transportation are the norm, but this is not necessarily the case on some college campuses. Units of measurement, we use the metric system in Ghana. Americans do not use the metric system, so they're going to be talking about miles and gallons instead of kilometers and liters, and of course the currency, right? But again, these differences, you notice them, and it actually doesn't take a long time to get used to these things. There are some words which are different. So instead of boot, they say trunk. Instead of car park, they say parking lot. You pick these things up. But then there are other things which are not as easy to do. One of the things that's very important to realize is that you're moving from a culture where having information available is just not a priority to a culture where having information available is a priority. So everywhere you go, you'll see that there are visitor information centers. At airports, there'll be information centers. there will be lots of announcements, lots of signage and so on. And it's because it's an information culture. And so details are important. Precision is important. They'll ask you for information at the airport. They expect you to have it. That's why you're being encouraged to have that information on pieces of paper, again, because it's an information culture. So it's not like, oh, what do I come to do here? Oh, I'm coming to school in the US. Not good enough. They want to know which state, what course are you going to study? So it is important that you have those details at your fingertips, which is why it is important to have all those documents with you. And the reverse is also true, because just as you will be expected to provide information to sort of fit in and operate within that space, they also expect you to have information about where you come from, aka Ghana. So think about this. What's the population of Ghana? How big is Ghana? Like, what's the area? What's the climate like? What's the average temperature in Ghana? What languages do they speak in Ghana? How many languages are there? What's the food in Ghana like, right? And you should be able to say these things just like that. So if you don't know any of these things, please find out, because it will look very odd if you are a Ghanaian and then somebody asks you, so what's the population of Ghana? You're like, the population of Ghana, we are a lot, me, I don't know. Go find out, right? Because you are going to an information culture and you are, in fact, kind of a cultural ambassador. So you should be prepared randomly to answer random questions about Ghana, like, what's the size of Ghana like? And the easiest answer, which I actually learned in my pre-departure orientation, is that Ghana is about the size of Colorado. You say that, everyone's like, oh, okay, cool. And then they move on. So remember that one. Ghana is about the size of Colorado, but you should find out the population, the average temperature in Fahrenheit, not Celsius, and just random facts about Ghana that you take for granted. Okay. We do directions differently. Nowadays, because of GPS, we don't give directions as much as we used to. But you still find situations where we do have to engage in directions. And the typical way of Ghanaian giving direction is, okay, when you get to this junction, you see the blue gates. Then you go up the street, you walk and find the mango tree. When you get to the mango tree, you see a junction. Don't pass there. Keep going straight. And then when you see the kiosk, then you make a right. If you don't see the kiosk and you keep on going and you see a brown gate, then you've gone too far. So come back and then go again, right? We use landmarks to engage with space. Americans don't do that. Americans use cardinal points of north, south, east, and west. So think about where you are in relation to the sea right now, and think about where north is, where east is, where west is, and where south is. Because when you are dealing with space and when people are giving you directions, they might say go north on Broadway and east on First Street. And you are thinking, where's the landmark? Where's the blue gate? And nobody's going to give you that, right? Of course, GPS makes things easier now, and you can just decide to, Google map it and follow the green dots. But if you don't have Wi-Fi, then you have issues. So orient yourself in space that way. Another important thing, and this is really, really important, is that you're moving to a country where rules are rules and meant to be obeyed. So I'm currently doing a research project in the central region. And so I've sort of been going up and down quite a bit. And a couple of weeks ago, I was in a car and the driver was driving and the car started beeping. I'm like, what's the beep about? And he's like, oh, that's what the noise the car makes when you hit 120. And I'm like, 120? The road sign said 80. Why are you doing 120 and 80? He said, oh, this road sign, it was for when they were constructing the road. No, that they put it there so people won't go fast. And they forgot to take it down when they finished doing the road construction. I'm like, no, this is a speed limit, which is permanent and has nothing to do with the road construction, right? But the driver didn't see it that way. And in Ghana, we don't see a lot of rules that way. We see rules as suggestions, and they're there, and you're like, well, if you're stupid enough to follow them if you like, right? You are going to a country where rules are rules and are meant to be obeyed. So speed limits, you're supposed to keep to. There's a wiggle room, depending on what state you're in, of 5 miles above. But the idea is that you should keep to speeding limits. Stop signs, you're supposed to come to a full stop, not like you slow down and then start. They actually expect you to brake, stop the car, and then start the car again, whether or not there's a car there, right? It's a rule country. When there is, and this is more enforced in cities, but you can get into trouble with this, so just pay attention to that. When there's a crosswalk, you're supposed to walk on the crosswalk. If you decide to walk across the street, not when there's a crosswalk, in some cities, you can actually get a ticket for that, right? Tax day, taxes, the deadline tends to be April 15th. If you don't pay your taxes by April 15th, you are subject to a penalty. And your international student office will walk you through taxes and stuff. So don't worry about that now. But the point here is that you're moving to a rule-following country where when they say no littering, they actually mean no littering. Okay, so just keep that in mind. Okay, one thing that you'll notice in the United States is there's a lot of dialogue on diversity. And diversity is important in the United States because America is made up of a lot of different kinds of people. And some people have been oppressed because of being different. And so now there's a lot of discourse about different ways of being in the world. And it's important that you are open to understanding how these things are viewed as important in the United States, because in Ghana, everybody's Black. So, or most people are Black anyway. And so the whole notion of race is not that big of a deal, but it is very much a deal in the United States. As you go, you are suddenly going to realize that you are no longer you. You are now becoming officially Black, and you are also becoming officially African. And that is how people are going to see you first. You're not going to be seen as an individual. You're not going to be seen as somebody who comes from Ghana, because most people will not know where Ghana is. You will begin to understand, and it's important to just be open and listen and pay attention when issues of diversity come up and are being discussed. One important space in which this is, you're going to run across this in university campuses, has to do with sexual and gender identity. And it's important to listen to the dialogue and what the different positions of people are. Don't just go there being totally Ghanaian, because that's just not going to work for you. Okay. One important thing that is happening on university campuses right now is preferred pronouns. So my name is Professor Vivian Jogoto. My preferred pronouns are she, he, hers. If you are male, your pronouns would generally be he, him, his, but there are also gender nonconformists who don't want to put in either a female box or a male box. And so they might say that their preferred pronouns are they, them, theirs. And the pronoun thing is becoming really important, and it's important to respect the pronouns that people choose to be called by. Okay, so those are some of the visible ones. Now let's talk about some of the invisible ones. One of these is time. So one of the things about Ghana is that we don't really take time seriously. Our blocks of time are rather large. So it's perfectly acceptable to say, I'll come and see you at 2:33. If we're not a lucky crowd, we'll add 3:30 to it, right? As if it's acceptable, like that 1 hour is an acceptable wiggle room. You're going to a place where blocks of time are much more precise. Now, they're not as strict as a place like Germany, for example, but still, Americans do take time much more seriously. For us, time is a suggestion. For Mainstream America is not necessarily so. So be careful about getting to places on time. This is actually going to be a very important issue if you're taking public transportation. If the bus is scheduled to leave at 10:57, it will leave at 10:57. If you get there at 10:58, you will miss the bus. So please be very careful about time. Time is also viewed as a precious commodity. There's never enough time. Ghanaians, for some reason, we just like to sort of take our time, get ourselves organized and so on. As a student, time management is going to be something that you need to pay attention to, how you use your time. In America, there's this attitude of multitasking. So it's sort of like, since there's not enough time, you can be doing three things at once. One of the things I was very shocked about when I was in graduate school was working lunches. So they will have a seminar, you can bring your lunch, and then, so the people are eating and then somebody's talking. And I'm like, this is very distracting. How can they be eating and listening to Apo at the same time? But like, it's a thing, right? Whereas we will take our time and eat and then talk. We're used to doing things very sequentially. Think about our cooking, for example. You do the oil first, the onions, then the pepper, then the this, then the that, then that, right? Sequentially, right? But there are other ways of cooking where you dump everything into a pot. Like, think about Chinese stir fry. You stir fry everything together, right? They don't have to cook one by one. So think about that. Our relations, Ghanaian culture has a particular relationship with time. You're moving to a place where the relationship with time is different. You're also moving to a place where the communication style is different. Ghanaians tend to have a rather indirect communication style. And this generally becomes an issue when it comes to saying no. Ghanaians generally have issues saying no. I can't do something. I don't know how to do it. One, because we think that it's a loss of face, either to us or the person who is expecting us to do this thing, right? But you're moving to a place where communication is direct. So if there's something that is not available, they will tell you that it's not available. They won't say, oh, go and come. You just go and come, right? It's like, if it's finished, it's finished. If it's out of stock, it is out of stock. If it's a yes, it's a yes. If it's a no, it's a no. There's no indirect kind of you saying yes, but hoping that the person really understands that you don't mean yes and you kind of sort of mean no and all that stuff. I mean, when it comes to our communication style, honestly, I think Ghanaian culture, we make things too complicated. I like the German way. It's blunt. It's like, no, absolutely not. The American style is a little bit in between, but the important thing is communication style is much more direct. The US communication style involves eye contact, which is something that in Ghana, we don't necessarily pay that much attention to, but it's considered respectful and sort of open to look people straight in the eye when you're having communications with them. Okay. Another individual difference has to do with what we call interdependence versus independence, which is how we deal with other people in our space. Ghana tends to be more of an interdependent culture. US is more of an independent culture. What does this mean exactly? We seem to see ourselves as integrated into the social space. So think about it. When you're born into an ethnic group, you're born into a family, you go to a particular school, you may go to a particular church or mosque or something like that, right? There are all these social spaces where you're automatically a member of, and you think of yourself in those things. So it's like, oh, I'm a graduate of, I don't know, GIS or whatever, right? But I grew up in Accra. So you have these places in which you think of yourselves as in all of these are part of you. So you don't necessarily have to think about me, Kra, who am I? Because you're told, like, this is who you are. Yana Shanti, what do you mean, who are you? Right? You're told who you are. In the United States, the self is much bigger and much less dependent upon these different automatic identities. And so people have more of a say in shaping who they want to be, what their identities are like. And that has both good sides and bad sides. But you do find that the idea of allowing people to be, or the idea that people can be whoever they want to be, is much more championed in American settings. And sometimes that makes Ghanaians confused, like, what do you mean you don't know who you are? But to be honest, some people really don't know who they are because they don't have default identities that have been ascribed on them, or they choose to reject those identities. This reflects on inner space. So sort of like, how much time do we actually spend thinking about ourselves and identities and who we are and what we feel and all of that? In US culture, introspection is encouraged. So people, as they grow up, are encouraged to spend time knowing themselves, thinking about what their thoughts and feelings, and pursuing what makes them happy. Whereas in Ghana, we are shaped to adjust our behaviors, feelings, and desires based on what other people think, aka our parents, the extended family, the general society, whether we know what they actually are thinking or not. But our behavior can be a little bit more constrained because of these social influences on our behavior. Okay. One thing to pay attention to is the notion of how we do relationships, which is in fact related to the whole independence, interdependence thing. And this may sound very abstract, so I'll try and give you a concrete example. In Ghana, it is perfectly acceptable to give somebody a gift just because, right? If you do that in America, you might be looked at as, like, people might be suspicious, like, well, why did you do that? It's not my birthday. What's their ulterior motive? Okay. And it's not that Americans are suspicious. It's just that we have different cultural understandings of and expectations of reciprocity. So in Ghana, there's not really that much expectation of reciprocity. You sort of help people when you can and move on. But in other cultures, reciprocity is an important thing. So if you give somebody a gift out of turn or something, then it suggests that they're indebted to you, and then it makes people uncomfortable. So it's important to think about how you interact with people. There is also one thing that I say every year, and I hope that you will remember this. I know that this is a lot of information, but this is important. There's a difference between friendliness and friendship within American settings. In Ghana, we don't make that distinction. We are friendly to people and we expect them to become our friends. In America, there's a difference between friendliness and friendship. So the fact that somebody is friendly to you doesn't automatically mean that they're interested in becoming your friend. If you don't pay attention to this, you might get offended at people who you're like, wait, but I saw them. We had this very good and what I thought was a deep discussion about the weather and politics and stuff. But then the next time they saw me, they didn't smile. It's not you. It's that they were being friendly and you thought that they were being your friend. Now, of course, it is possible to make friends with Americans, and Americans make friends with people all the time. But you have to understand that one thing that Americans do very, very well that we don't do as much is small talk. The notion of being able to talk about stuff in very detail, in deep detail with people that you don't know very well. Small talk, right? So don't confuse small talk for, oh, they're not your best friend. They were just being social. This is taken from a book about American culture, which says, visitors may be overwhelmed by the sheer exuberant friendliness of Americans, especially in the central and southern parts of the country. Sit next to an American on a plane, and he will immediately address you by your first name, ask you how you like it in the States, explain his recent divorce in intimate detail, invite you home for dinner, tell you how much he makes, offer to lend you money, hug you on leaving. This does not necessarily mean that he will remember your name the next day. Americans are friendly because they can't help it. They want to be neighborly and liked. However, a wise traveler realizes that a few happy moments with an American do not necessarily translate into permanent commitment of any kind. The most fundamental American social relationship is the casual acquaintance. This is written by somebody who titled his book, The Xenophobe's Guide to the Americans. Okay, so again, friendliness versus friendship, not exactly the same. Here are some social customs. If you're invited to a party, that does not mean you're going to eat for free. The assumption, unless it's like an African party or something like that, but the assumption is that if you're being invited to somebody's home, you take something, a gift of some kind. Either you bring dessert or a drink or something like that. And also it is rude to not be on time. So the whole time thing, if someone says dinner starts at 7, please be prepared to be that 7. So this is one of the times where you are actually expected to bring a gift, and they will not look at you suspiciously because the whole reciprocity thing, right? So the idea is that they have opened up their home to you, you bring a gift. There is one space in which you can let that slide, like when you have host parents, you're not expected to take a gift every single time that you go to them for dinner, right? So there's some spaces where it's a little bit different, but especially the first time, if somebody invites you to dinner, the expectation is that you take something. Right. So I'm going to skip over this because I don't want to bore you, but remember how I started the presentation. The presentation had one section on visible cultural differences. And this second section, I've been talking about invisible cultural differences. Okay. And so it's important to pay attention to both the visible cultural differences and the invisible cultural differences. For me, what I notice is that people can generally adapt sooner to the visible cultural differences because you see them and you adjust to them. However, the invisible cultural differences are the ones that can 6 months down the line give you sort of adjustment problems. And so that's why it's important for you to sort of remember these kinds of things, right? And from an abstract perspective, the main thing is that Ghanaian culture is not equal to US culture. And so it's important to realize that in your dealings with people. Shouldn't mean that you shouldn't deal with other people. It just means that sometimes issues that can come up can be because of cultural differences. Now, the other thing is also true that we should not blame culture for everything, right? And so it shouldn't be that, oh, we can't get along because I'm an American and you are a Ghanaian. Sometimes it's my personality versus your personality that just don't clash, right? Or that do not get along. And so we can't blame all the problems that people run into on cultural differences alone. And that's what makes it a little bit more difficult. But I've had people come to me and say, oh yeah, this explains why this particular situation happened to me, right? And it's because they weren't really aware that there were these invisible cultural differences that shaped their everyday experiences and interactions. And we don't realize about these invisible cultural differences simply because they're invisible. So we can't see them. It's like we can't see the subtle ways in which we have been socialized in our culture. We only notice them when we go to somebody else's culture and like, wait, why are they doing this thing that way? They're doing that thing that way because they've been socialized to do it differently and we have been socialized to do it differently. So the question is, how can you learn to operate successfully in a space where the rules are different? Number one is knowing what those rules are and how they are different from ours, and then deciding what you want to do with those things. So let's talk a little bit about the adjustment process now. Basically, it's an up and down process. I went to a wedding last weekend and I was like, oh, how cute. The couple is so happy. They're going to go through their honeymoon period where everything is so wonderful, right? And then they'll you're basically going to be going to the same thing. So you are going to go through a honeymoon period. You're going to go and it's like, oh yes, finally, oh, the journey's over. I've got my ticket, I've got my visa, I've got everything is set. I'm in America. This is wonderful. I can't believe I'm here. Like, this is beautiful, right? You're going to go through that. And then at some point, you're going to have a slump and you're going to negotiate some frustrations, and then you will readjust and it will be an up-down process. That's what's known as the cultural adjustment curve. Duration varies for everyone. So I can't say in 3 months, you'll be in the honeymoon phase and then 6 months, you'll be in that phase. It doesn't happen like that. It depends. Everybody has a different experience. But the most important thing to realize is that adjustment is not a straight line. So if you notice that at some point you're really happy and at some other points you're not happy at all, just remember that you're just going through a cross-cultural adjustment phase. So it's important to make connections and build a friendship community in person, on campus, online. Keep touch with your old friends, make new friends, because these things will help you during your adjustment process. Now, there's this thing that I generally do for in-person workshops that I'm going to skip here, but I'll tell you what that idea is. So there's a handwriting exercise, and what I would encourage you to do is just do this later on, right? But think about it. You have a dominant hand that you write with, and then you have a non-dominant hand. So I'm a right-handed person, right? So I can write my name, Vivian, right hand, no problem. Now, if I were to put the pen in my left hand and try to write Vivian, it will take me much longer to write it. It won't look as neat. And I'll probably have problems with some of the letters, even though I've been writing my first name all my life. Why? Because I'm doing it in a new setting. Writing with your non-dominant hand is like cultural adjustment. You'll find that brushing your teeth may suddenly become more complicated. Going to the store might suddenly become more complicated. And you ask yourself, but in Ghana, I used to do these things all the time. Why is it so hard for me to do it here? It's part of the cultural adjustment process. Sometimes you can experience what is known as culture shock, where you will feel things like you're not being productive, you can't concentrate, you just feel like sleeping all the time. You just can't get along with people. Note that this happens to quite a lot of people. It's part of the cultural adjustment process. And it's because you're in a new environment. It takes time to get used to everything. You can't buy kinky at the corner anymore, right? Homesickness. And then also you might start getting very irritated. Like, why is it that people don't know where Ghana is? Like, what's wrong with all these people? And why don't people know about Africa? And why are they calling me an African? Don't they know that I'm a Ghanaian? And, it's like, why are people treating me differently because I'm Black? Well, there's racism, right? So these are things that can all become parts of a negative experience, which may form a part of your stay. But it's important to realize that these things never last forever. It's a rough patch of your adjustment process. Make it a point to talk to somebody who understands what you're going through and find ways to handle stress. So there's some people who handle stress by praying or go to church. Some people will journal. Some people will spend time on the internet. Some people go to the movies. But one of the most important things is that you're going there because of school. So it is important that you do not let your academic work suffer if you're going through a rough patch. If you ever see that you are feeling so low that you don't go to class, you're not doing your homework and stuff like that, please find the nearest university counseling center and go and make an appointment. You do not want to jeopardize your academic performance because you're feeling homesick or worse. So please take care of your mental health as much as possible. Let's skip that and let me talk a little bit about academic work, right? Because again, the idea is do not jeopardize your academic work because you're because you're not feeling well or not feeling happy. So what is the thing about academic work? So you're going to college, right? The idea is that, well, from a professor's standpoint, I expect all my students to show up for classes and get their work done on time. So you need to do whatever it takes to do that. What does that mean? Studying. It means asking questions when you don't understand something. It means asking for help when you don't understand something or don't know how to do something. It does not mean copy from other people as a means of asking for help, right? The expectation is that you will do your work, you will do it yourself. You can get a tutor, you can ask for help for friends, but you never copy other people's work, okay? You study for exams, you find out where all your classes are, you check in with the instructor if things are not clear or the teaching assistant. And also, one very important thing, speak up in class. So you're shifting from a chew, pour, pass, forget model to one where instructors are genuinely interested in what you have to say. Instructors are genuinely interested in what you bring to the classroom. So it's not just about the instructor is the content expert and you get to come and listen to their wisdom and then you go out. No, you also have life experiences and we want to see whether you're understanding the course material. So when there are class discussions, when there are group activities and so on, the idea is that you participate in them to the best of your ability. Okay. There's lots more that I could say, but I'm going to wrap it up here because we're out of time. But the most important takeaway from this that I want you to take away is this. There are visible cultural differences and there are invisible cultural differences. And your job as the newest Ghanaian cultural ambassador to the United States in the school that you're going to is to successfully adapt to both the visible cultural differences and the invisible ones. And good luck to you as you navigate this process. I'm so excited for all of you guys who are going to go out there and make us proud. So thank you for your attention and good luck.
Dr. Jokoto, thank you so much. I believe you all agree with me that she has given us a lot of great information. I'm looking at some of your comments and it's very encouraging. And to those of you who shared information on which schools you'll be attending, we are very grateful. After this session, remember that you can still reach out to Education USA Accra and Education USA Kumasi. As always, we will share our contact information again for the benefit of those who have just joined us for the first time. We're now going to the last part of our virtual pre-departure for today. We have some amazing students here, and I will have them introduce themselves by telling you their names and the institutions they've attended or are still attending. And then we will share a few questions or tips with you all. So Victor, you are first on my screen. So kindly introduce yourself. Then I go on to Senna, Emir, and then Faith.
Hello.
In that order.
Hi, I'm Victor Azuma. I'm a graduate from University of Pennsylvania, and I'm an incoming student for a PhD in Carnegie Mellon University.
Thank you,
Hi.
Senna.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. My name is Senna, and I just completed Lafayette College in May, and I studied computer science.
Thank you. Okay, I see Faith. Hello. Is Emir here?
Hi, yes, I am here.
Yes, please. Go ahead and introduce yourself.
Yes, hi. My name is Amir Brandon Skinner, and for my undergraduate career in the United States, I attended Xavier University of Louisiana.
Thank you. And then Faith.
Faith has stepped away. I'm sorry. I will let you know when she is back.
Okay, thank you. So we are going to have you share your experiences while studying in the US. Okay, so it's a very good balance. We have 2 Ghanaian students and 2 American students. So we're going to have a very good balance in terms of sharing views. I will have you all share some tips, okay? Some tips, especially I know the academics and then the social life can be very, very different and challenging for some students. So from the perspective of an American student in an American university, and then a Ghanaian student in a Ghanaian university, it might be good to have that perspective. So I'll start now. Now Amir is first on my screen. So I have Amir share some tips she would like to share with all our admitted students who are enrolling this fall with social and academic and social. And Amir is in Ghana now, so if there are some cultural things you think are worth mentioning, it might be good to also bring that up. So I'll give you, not to put anyone under pressure because of our time, I'll give you 2 minutes. Okay, I think Faith is here, so I'll have her introduce herself. Amir, to give you just some little time to put all your tips together. Hi, Faith.
Hi.
Thank you for joining the student panel. Can you introduce yourself to our audience? Tell us your name, your full name, and which school you're studying in.
Yeah, so my name is Faith Sullivan. I go to school in Illinois at the Loyola University of Chicago.
Thank you. And I'm happy to say that I'm also a proud graduate of a school in Illinois. All right, so with that, we'll turn over to Ms. Brandon Skinner to share some tips, having studied in an undergraduate program, academically and then also socially. If you have some cultural tips, it might help as well. So
Yes.
we'll go in this order: Amir, Victor, Senna, and then Faith.
Perfect. I would say on the American side of things and looking from the United States, some tips that I would give is don't be afraid to talk to your professor. I believe it got mentioned earlier. If you have questions, ask them. If you don't feel comfortable asking those questions, please go to office hours. Office hours are typically once or twice a week for every professor, where you can start to build that one-on-one bond or relationship with your professors. And that will truly be something that impacts the professor when looking at grading you, when looking at potentially writing you letters of recommendations for things. If you would like to potentially get into their class another semester, but it's filled, they can use that override code. So making that relationship and using those office hours to ask them questions about their career, about if they're receiving their PhD or if they're doing anything in their lives, or asking them questions about classwork. They love to see you taking that initiative. So whether it's in the classroom or outside of the classroom, they love to see you showing them that you want to take the extra step to just bettering your future and your education. Another tip I would give is when it comes to Americans, some of them can come off a little aggressive or hard. Definitely please keep your nice Ghanaian demeanor. Do not start to resemble some of the American aggressiveness from time to time. That's just an outer shell. When you get to know them, they'll definitely soften up, and please make the friendships, make the connections with them. It's definitely an amazing experience to see how all Americans are not the same. All individuals, of course, are not the same. So you may meet someone from the West Coast of the US and someone from the East Coast, and they'll have completely different backgrounds, experiences, personality types. So please enjoy all of that. From being in Ghana this summer so far, I would say a tip I would give to students would most definitely be to look at your bills and like receipts when you get things, because in America we have tax, and tax will really just make your receipts and things not seem like they're reflecting what you're buying. So you may be at a restaurant ordering out and you may only spend about $50, but then when the bill comes, it looks like you're paying, you know, $65 to $68, and you're wondering why when this is how much your bill, this is how much you ordered was. So definitely pay attention to that, notice it. Just it's something you'll get accustomed to seeing, as well as something that you'll just get kind of used to more and more adding on mentally in your head when you go out to pay for groceries or pay at a restaurant, coffee shop, anything like that. I would also say, from being a student socially, there'll be a lot of group work. So you'll have the opportunity to make connections within your classes, but also do your best to join organizations, join clubs that interest you. Do your best to make those friend groups outside of the classroom, someone that has a different major, someone that you may normally have never have encountered through your normal classes or daily life. So those are kind of the overall things I would say. And I know my counterparts will give amazing advice as well.
Thank you very much. Do not be afraid to ask questions. Americans are not the same. You will be paying taxes in the US. These are some of the things I picked from Emia's submission. We'll move on to Victor. We will be wrapping up very soon, listeners. So if you have any last minute questions, please drop them. I know most of you are talking about expedited appointments. We are going to give you a link it's a new link that can give you access to most of the questions you have on the visa application, the interview. So we won't forget that. Victor, please, over to you. Share some tips with us.
Hi, so I have a bunch of stuff that I wrote. In terms of academics, I would advise you meet your advisor as soon as possible. Go with a plan and make a very, very good first impression. As Ernst, Emir said, don't be afraid to ask for help. Don't be so hard on yourself on your first semester. Take time to adjust, especially with your courses. If you did science in Ghana, if you did chemistry or biology, you should try and take the placement test as soon as you can to get extra credits so that you don't have to take chemistry in school. Social stuff, all the friendship making starts early, so try to do that. You came to school alone, so be mindful of the decisions you make. Find a group of people who understand your unique experiences, especially other African students, because it will help you when you have cultural issues. Stay in touch with your family as best as you can. And if you want to make friends with people, try to invite them to work on problems and study together with them. Financial aid, keep an eye out for scholarships and awards. Talk to other minority people who've taken a similar path. And don't be afraid to renegotiate your financial aid if your status changes or your situation changes. For summers, internships, and research, if you want to do a PhD or go to grad school, I recommend you do research. If you want to go to the job market, internships, try to do both at least once so that you know what you like. For research, reach out to professors via email towards the end of the semester. If they don't interview you or ask you about your interest and they just tell you to come to the lab, don't apply because they don't care about your progress. They just want someone to be in the lab. So I would recommend you go to only professors who interview you and ask about your own interest. And for internships, you want to apply to as many places as you can, especially because when you're in your junior years, because you don't have as much experience, and also be willing to take volunteer positions without pay. Yeah, I think that would probably be most of my stuff. Yeah.
Thank you. We'll move over to Senna.
All right, can everyone hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, it seems so. All right. So for me, for the social tip would be don't be afraid to reach out. I think one thing that in Ghana we don't really like push hard is like being the person to take the first step. And I think it's really important when you're in a new place to go out and seek like things that you are interested in. Be the first person to say hi and like ask questions about the person that you're interacting with. Be like the first person to make the first step because it makes people warm up to you. And when people feel like they are valued in your presence, you make a lot more friends, which is very important. For the academic side of things, I would say that I went to liberal arts institutions, so I don't know. It might be in the same in like research institutions, but as an international student, like if you're interested in like working in the United States with like the optical the OPT, I don't know the full name. Uh, you should probably like start doing like internships or like applying to places where they offer volunteer opportunities where you can increase like your skills. If you want to do like if you want to go to grad school, you should probably look into research with a professor. And there are a lot of like, as Victor said, if if a professor just says come to the lab, probably don't do that. You should go to one that you actually apply and there's like a goal for the summer, and hopefully you get paid for it. And it's something like really valuable that you can add to your resume. And this is something that really helped me to get internships in the future. So that's one thing I would really like hit on. And also go to office hours. That's one thing I didn't do a lot during my college experience because of how high school was. Because like if you go see like I went to Ghanaian high school, public high school, and if you go see like a teacher outside classes for me in my high school, they'll be like, come to my extra classes, you get paid like they want to get paid for that extra time. But like in the US, they have designated times they actually have to meet with you. So like don't be afraid to ask questions. Don't be afraid to look like dumb or whatever. I mean, it will be important to like ask your questions and get to know everything instead of like being dumb during an exam. So yeah, that's one thing I would really like hit on. Go to office hours. It's really important to get things clarified. So
Thank you, Senna. We'll go to Faith.
Yeah, so I think everybody, what they said is definitely true, but to add on a little bit, I dealt with a lot of like homesickness, which I know was touched on earlier, and it's kind of inevitable. Like I went to college, obviously in the same country, but you know, it was a couple hours away, and it's definitely real. But my biggest advice for that is just to like stay as involved as possible. Like don't just stay in your room alone and like, you know, be by yourself, because that just really like perpetuates the cycle. So get involved, be with friends, and eventually like over time you'll be fine. And definitely still call your parents and stay in touch, but make sure you're making connections outside of that, because it definitely helps with the homesickness. And then academically, I found that to have at least one friend in each class that I had their like phone number or contact information, just in case I missed a class because I was sick or something, so they could get me the notes or the work of whatever I missed in class. And then in the beginning of the school year, I always, and in general, but I always like to get to class early, like 10, 15 minutes early, especially in the beginning, to get a good seat, kind of like get your surroundings. I think that just helps to like feel prepared for the class.
Wow, I wish we can be on here forever to gather all the good, amazing information. Faith, Senna, Victor, Amir, thank you very much. Thank you, Professor Jokoto. You've all been amazing. I want to say special thank you to my supervisor, Miss Lennis Brooker. She's been so busy. She made time for us. We are so happy to have you all. Mrs. Owusu, thank you. We will wrap up at this point. To our listeners, we say thank you for joining. Facebook is showing that we have one of the largest number of participants for all our programs today. Is very high. At any given point in time, we have over 200 people on the event. So thank you for always patronizing. Those of you who have questions about expedited appointments and dates, we are sharing a link that will help answer some of your questions. So feel free to revisit the video. Feel free to work with Education USA Accra or Kumasi. We are always at your service. Thank you so much for joining our pre-departure session. We wish you the best and we look forward to communicating more with you even before you embark. Thank you all very much. Have a good evening. We'll be back in 2 weeks on the 7th of July to have a similar program for students embarking on graduate studies. Thank you all very much. Enjoy your evening. Bye-bye.